pajama mode. I'm live on Facebook. I'm live here on X. Welcome. Definitely coffee time for me. Definitely, we had the blood moon lunar eclipse last night. And got the heart, the Two of Cups out. Very beautiful card. I'll keep that for a moment. Just pull. I'm still in my sleep dream cycles, even though I woke up, set my alarm for the eclipse, decided not to watch it because I wanted to honor the eclipse. Also, I wouldn't have probably seen it because it is yet again a gloomy day that had snow last night, and then this morning, I guess, freezing rain. So I know the energy is very potent right now, so I'm just going to honor that energy. And I am going live on Facebook and on X to watch the Board of County Commissioners. So exciting. But as an intuitive, I have my tarot cards, I have astrology. There they are. Board of County Commissioners hearing bright and early in Washington County, Maryland. And I'm going to do it Mystery Science Theater style, so I will talk over it. If you really want to watch it, I linked it over here on X, and it's the Maryland, Washington County government. If you're on Facebook, or I'm also recording this audio, you're not going to hear the audio of the commissioner hearing, so there's going to be points where I'm just silent. But I do have my tarot cards. I come at this from a completely intuitive political perspective. That's what I do. And let's hear this meeting out. So you might not see me. I'm going to move my camera, or move my screen over. Morning coffee time. Okay. They started right on time. Last week they were late. So they are probably going to try and race through this meeting because ICE is on this schedule today, and that so this is the guy that resigned last week, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There's a guy that resigned. I have my thoughts about this guy, Derek Harvey. And that's that. It's crazy how this is where it's at. These commissioner hearings. Well, I'm gonna ask Derek Harvey. I might be able to play his clip. I don't know what I'm allowed to do in that. I'm going to ask about Derek Harvey. What's going on with him? Victory after battle. 6 of light codes. The devil. The shadow cleansing, shadow clearing. And the 4 of activations, which is the 4 of swords, which is like sit it out and see. So you know why they're saying service to the country? Okay, so there is a commissioner. If anybody's new to my lives, there's a commissioner that resigned last week. They're going to recess. They're going to recess. They're going to recess. They're not hearing public comment, so people are trying. I don't even think they're going to have protesters up there today. They're going to recess. There are people trying to protest this because what happens is they had an intel guy on the board, and all of a sudden they get this DHS facility. So there's 2 people in there, agitators in the community. Notice it's all in twos. I'm a pattern recognizer. So if anybody wants to come at me, I am on the spectrum and I recognize patterns. I'm also an astrologer and intuitive. I think Derek Harvey, U.S. Army Colonel, on the staff of Congressman Devin Nunes. We'll get to him in a moment. This is from Wikipedia. And he was on the House Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence. This is the guy that resigned last week. Harvey is a former National Security Council staffer in the first presidency of Donald Trump and was the first director of the Afghanistan-Pakistan Center of Excellence at U.S. Central Command, having selected by General David Petraeus in 2009 to lead the new organization. And Harvey was the previous senior analytical specialist for Iraq under Petraeus, the commander, multinational forces Iraq. After being fired, we don't know why, but a lot of these guys get fired and then just relocated. It's like a thing they do in the military or in these intelligence communities. So they use the word fired, but it's like redistributed. That's what I think of when I say fired in anything like this, right? So this is a pattern that we recognize with a lot of these guys. He became a top aide to Republican Congressman Devin Nunes. See the pattern? He started out, left, he came back. On the House Intelligence Committee in September of 2017, so that's during Trump. There's no public comment right now. So they did have a public hearing. Derek Harvey was. allegedly. Okay, here's public comment on their live stream. Why? She's realizing she's seeing public. It's a concentration camp. They could have done this 3 meetings ago, and it would have saved them a lot of this bullshit. So you hear protesters outside. I don't know if that's translating on X. If you're on Facebook, you can't hear it, but the meeting is linked. Washco MD Facebook, Washington County. This is their commissioner board hearing for those. You can't hear their audio right now. I'm still recording it. You can hear protesters outside. Or at least I thought I could. Yeah. I can hear protesters outside. That's really the only way that people are heard in the meetings, although they did. The lady. It's parliamentarian speak. Okay, they're going to recess. He's saying, do we have a public session? The guy, whatever his fucking name is, I forget. Oops, I just turned up the brightness. Yep. I mean, you gotta give it whatever side. I think these guys are on are also saying the same thing. There's different sides in the commissioner hearing. There's people for it. There's people against it. I think this guy was for it. They're not even giving him the chance. They're gonna kick him out. I don't think they want him to recess. The commissioners. They're probably gonna kick this guy out. What are you? Okay. There's people in there with signs. You have to go in there and be silent. I know I was gonna get kicked out, so that's why I've been doing these lives, because I already got. I found this far more useful. Is you can kind of Google things while. So the guy you're hearing, his name is John F. Barr. He's the president of the board. And then there's protesters in the meeting right now. So it's just people are holding signs. You can't really see them, but you can kind of see. I mean, this is a tiny, tiny room. They're trying their best not to go to recess because last week they knew they fucked up. they're getting to ice stuff at 10:25, around 10:25. So, so I'll kind of half listen, but I'm gonna also read the rest of this Derek John Harvey, who Derek Harvey, this is via Wikipedia. So he resigned last week, and he also was the person who leaked the Ukraine whistleblower name. Well, in this role, Harvey worked to leak the name, or I guess involved in, right, of the Ukraine whistleblower, causing concern about their safety and legal protections of whistleblowers. So if he's involved with that, my whole question is Derek Harvey was elected to serve a 4-year term. So he was elected to serve, when did he serve? December 6th, 2022. So when all this stuff came out about Ukraine, he all of a sudden gets sent. And I do believe that he got sent. I don't think he woke up one day and was like, "I'm gonna go to this small town that I live near and become a board of county commissioner." And his term expires this year. So what I think, allegedly, I don't have any proof, is that this guy I think that this guy was inserted, and I don't think it's isolated to Washington County. I think this is across the board on all these commissioner hearings because it's easy when you go to these small towns, and this is a small, Appalachian town, to put these intel guys there and get it done. It based on his tiny bio, just the intro to his tiny bio on Wikipedia, what I see as a pattern recognizer. And again, I'm an astrologer, I'm a tarot card reader, I'm a comedian, but mainly all of that comes to I'm on the spectrum. So I recognize patterns. And the pattern that I'm recognizing here is that these guys do the dirty work, right? The henchmen. So when you have a henchman, you kind of go into their history. And since he resigned after the board meeting last week, I kind of started doing like a little bit of a deep dive. So into just some of his interviews, which I don't think I can play here, but he did go on Fox in 2022 or 2025. Let me see if I can find him to discuss Iran. And to me, he was also on the War Room, Bannon's War Room. Let's see if I can find the interview. I guess if I cite it here, I can probably play it. It won't be heard on my other live stream. And if this live stream gets pulled, I'll come back. But here we go. So I'm going to silence. Are they going to? Hold on, I'm going back into the commissioner hearing because the president of the commission just walked out. Oh, they're giving a proclamation. They're giving the person's. Oh, they're taking pictures and stuff. Okay, I'm good. So I want to kind of silence this for a second. If something happens, I can watch it in the replay. But okay, this is Derek Harvey, and this is through Fox. This is Derek Harvey. U.S. strikes on Iran. By the way, he's serving on the commissioner board in Washington County. Maria Bartiromo and Fox. I mean, you kind of okay, so that is Sunday Morning Futures, Maria Bartiromo on Fox. This is featuring Colonel Derek Harvey. Um, Now this is a man who served on a county commissioner board in Washington County, Maryland, who resigned last Tuesday or Wednesday? Last Wednesday. So, I don't know, I have a lot of questions. He's also kinda insinuating, there's other worlds. This is what the octopus, so there's other worlds, actors here that are probably gonna enter the stage, and let me shout out some people doing work that doesn't have to do with, so if you wanna kind of go to people doing this work that's not related to astrology and tarot, there's Project Saltbox. They're on Instagram and they are on Substack. You can hear protesters outside still. Good. Um, they're doing wonderful work, and they basically brought if you're joining me on Facebook, I'm listening to a commissioner hearing, so I'm not just staring at a screen. You just can't hear it. Soon. Looking at the schedule. This is for aircraft rescue. So, as enthralling as this is and helpful to people, um, I'm gonna go into Project Saltbox for a second. So this is via Instagram, but it's also via their Substack. Project Saltbox writes 53 unmarked government vehicles were delivered overnight to a Department of Homeland Security warehouse in Williamsport, Maryland. According to photos obtained by Project Saltbox from Hagerstown Rapid Response, more vehicles are expected to arrive from Minnesota in the coming days. According to a source familiar with the operation, quote, government vehicles are already pulling into the DHS warehouse. And there's a picture here, and there are, they said at least 50. So I have a video of me going up to the warehouse, but it was still the snowcrete. We got something called snowcrete here in Maryland where the whole entire facility was like surrounded by the snowcrete. So it is now since thawed out. Government vehicles are already pulling into the DHS warehouse while our community is still being denied straight answers, said Patrick DeTilio, an organizer with Hagerstown Rapid Response. That tells you everything. This was never about transparency. It was about pushing this operation forward before residents could stop it. So earlier on this, we heard that they had a town meeting in a theater. Okay, so part of that is their kind of way of being like, "Oh, we didn't know." My whole thing is, I think they knew. I think that somebody in that commissioner hearing that has since resigned knew. I think he was put there, and my question is this across the board? And I will kind of, as this live goes on, I might be repeating myself just as people, you know, just as this meeting goes on, because that's my main question. Another person asking questions is also on Instagram, but I know her from TikTok. And I feel like a lot of us are displaced from TikTok trying to find where we're supposed to be. But her name is Asia Ba. And Asia Ba she has a couple different pages because she's been taken down. And it's about trucks. I'll half listen to that. But she's been discussing how this has also been going on in her town in Indiana. So it's not isolated. Project Saltbox on Substack has a list of the maps that these DHS warehouse facilities are located. So let me just kind of, it's like so much coming at us at once, and like you have to kind of slow your brain down in the middle of it because that's what they want. And so my whole question is, and them, I mean, I'm coming at it from like, this is the military industrial complex, right? And literally we're seeing it in industrial warehouses. We're seeing it in, my whole question is who purchased this? Well, it was the Navy. It's under a Navy contract. And part of when I keep pulling cards is like, look to the water, look to the water. But sometimes, I work with Goddess. So I'm going to turn down this hearing. If they go into recess or anything like that, I'll find out once I get to but part of what I keep pulling when I do my tarot readings, and part of what the astrology is saying to us, is it's water wars. And so, I go into like, what's water? well, water is frequency, currency, feminine. Um, I was in Austin many years ago, and I just kind of kept getting the downloads. It's a war on the divine feminine that we're going through right now. So it can translate a lot, because when you work with spirit, and a lot of times, when I do readings for people, when you're speaking to people who have crossed on the other side, a lot of times they're speaking in metaphors, poetry, comedy. There, sometimes references that are very funny. And so sometimes when you hear spirit be like, or hear these energies be like, hey, it's water, look to the water, I think about the logical side of it, which is, well, Cuba, off the coast of Cuba, is a logical thing. Why would they put Netanyahu's children in Miami right now? Is it because it's safe, or is it because it's a deal? Um, or yeah, he's in Miami. The other thing is, why are Navy contracts, that's also part of the water, why are Navy contracts covering these ice warehouses? That's another question that I have, right? And so I build out from there, and intuitively I just pulled attune and recalibrate, which is the Two of Swords. I actually pulled this card. I posted a video from 2025, or actually 2024, where I said, look to the eclipses. The cave, the Eight of Earth Guardians. Now, the Eight of Earth Guardians is the Eight of Pentacles, but the cave is what sticks out to me, because what I kept seeing was underwater caves. So I'm going to look at what the book definition of this, and this is Izzy Ivy, is the artist and author of this tarot card deck, and it is called Unveiling the Golden Age. The reason, and I utilize this deck right now because it's a hard deck for me to read from. It's not an easy deck for me. So I keep working with it. 71 is the card number. 8 is the number. Changing names. Office of Procurement, Purchasing, Department name. So this one I'm going to listen to. Look at that. Order. We want to hear about water right now, because water is a huge thing. Water is across the board, whether it's for the warehouse, clean water. Let me go on to the meeting. So the message of this card is to start where you are and keep going. But the thing that sticks out to me with this card is her vision, because she does visions on here. She painted these, and she has like visions that helped create these cards. is about being in a dark cave that's like a womb space. So it's like in the birthing space. And you can hear protesters still outside, so they didn't move them. So let me ask about the womb space. Are the caves the womb space? Is it underwater or is it seems like it's more metaphorical, being like, no, 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 not underwater caves, literally the womb of life. What are we going on to right now? Personal requests. Let's hear what they're requesting. Heartful communication. This is the Page of Swords. People are in the chat. If you hear my stomach growling, I am fasting, and the only thing I get before, usually about I go at sundown, just in respect that I'm doing like a hybridized Lent in honor of other religions, and it's something that I felt in a meditation I needed to do. So if you hear my stomach growling, constituents are asking. Airport activity, is it increasing due to the feds buying this warehouse? Most likely. Listen to your constituents. We do not want a detention center. Love how none of you listen to your constituents. What a joke. Do you all understand how bad this looks? People can't even hear online are being removed. People we can't even hear online are being removed. Got you, got you, got you. All the people watching here is Michelle and Zach. I don't know what they're talking about, but I know they know what they're talking about. So I respect that person. It's coming, get over it. So that's somebody talking about the warehouse. Liars, lying lie is gonna lie. You know what? That's a good t-shirt right there. I hope that person gets a t-shirt. Lying lie is gonna lie. This might be part of it, plus or minus. Oh, it's a guy. There's a man in a uniform. There's a man in a uniform. Another man in a uniform. Yes. Somebody have trash can emojis. That's not for this song. Lots of comments. Lots of public comments here. Not being heard. I love these comments. Y'all don't listen not one bit. I don't. They do not. Y'all don't listen not one bit. Perfect t-shirts here. We got y'all don't listen not one bit, and lying liar's gonna lie. Those are t-shirts right there, bumper stickers. Mhm. I think lying liar's gonna lie is my favorite one. Okay, I wanna honor this person in here. Y'all lock up homeless people, harass the community, and spend money on fancy cars for, well, I'm not gonna use the word they but it's related to an authority figure. Do better. This person is just they should run. Okay, why? I really like these comments here. Okay. Why do they need a 2025 Chevy Suburban? Alright, here we go. Special operations. It's them. Why would they be oh, okay, never mind. Oh, it's very interesting how they worded it on the schedule. So all of this, it's not just 10:25, it was 10:05 that started. They put it under personal no, general fund for public safety. That's it. So all the rest is most likely all ICE and DHS. Where are they getting that money from? Most likely the federal government. The wheel of life is turning. This is I don't even stream out if you haven't been able to see me. I love how there's like whole zodiac wheel here. Mm. I also want to shout out Blair Postman, who's a comedian. She's coming at this from a more grounded perspective. She's not using it's called Cat Ladies of America. She's more coming at this from more, I guess, the solid Democrat, the solid old school Democrat perspective. So if you want more less woo woo, more kind of old school Democrat, that's Blair Postman. She's a comedian out of DC-ish area. Very funny lady. And she is doing this work on her Instagram, Cat Ladies for America. So check her out. Project Saltboats is coming at it from a very just more of reporting on just where are the warehouses, what are they doing, what are the budgets, this is the map. Very much a great resource. And then there's me, the oddball. Who channels goddess. That's why I kind of do this by myself. I don't want to put anybody in a position where they have to be like, wait, you were just talking to somebody that says they channel the goddess? Weirdo. And pulls tarot cards? That's not Christian. If they only knew. Jesus was all about astrology and tarot and all of this. The moon. New Earth transition. Oh. I don't know what's going on in the world right now because I haven't been able to check news. Oh, there's a guy. Okay, I am on live stream. And I have had a lot of coffee. I'll be right back. How do I change this? Okay, I'm gonna just put BRB in 5 minutes. I have to pee. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, you can hear protesters. I'm still live. Oh, I didn't even put that I was. There you go. Okay, how do I change this again? I'm back. There we go. A magician. See, that's what Jesus was. He was a magician. He was a magi. Jesus. All right, I'm going to continue to try and do these lives for every one of these meetings because they will kick you out. And if you're just, not that I am anti-protest, but I just don't know how effective certain protests are in certain places. So that's what I noticed. Am I still not there? And since there's no public comment, this has been the better way to get people's voice, or at least be able to read people's comments. So let's go to public comment. There's been a lot since in the last, 5 minutes? I'm not sure how anyone with empathy can be opposed to a new humane, refitted, for-purpose facility replacing decades-old ice facilities. Shame on all who are opposed. Okay? Thank you, Tom. So he's saying, "Shame on you." He sees this as an improvement. Mars, I think, has just moved into Pisces. Let me check the astrology. Yep, Mars is at 0 degrees of Pisces, which we want to look at Mars for these types of things. If you're my little dog, my baby dog, he be barking. He has something to say. He has public comment too. Over $1 million and just 2 added officers, money, blah blah blah. I read that part. But I appreciate the public comment, but I just don't know if she would want me to read that. I don't know who she is, but um, let's see. What are they helping with? Plenty. But I guess in your eyes, the don't help with anything. They don't help with anything. So please don't call them when you need something. I think this is about the officers. It's like EMS, lots of officers in there. They're leaving the meeting. Cute outfit. Victory after battle. Somebody says, defund ICE, shame on you. So this is an area that has a lot of social services as well. That's mainly what their career trajectory up in Hagerstown, Maryland is, social services. Social workers, nursing, and a nice facility. Now apparently from the last meeting, hotels or I guess all the influx of travelers. 'Cause so many people are traveling to the Battle of Antietam. Stonehenge. I think this has been an indicator of the change in season. So this is social services. I wanna give her respect. Shame on all of you freaks for allowing the future mass incarceration of American citizens and heinous violations of civil liberties. MAGA is un-American. Now, in the comments, there are people I'm reading. You can go onto their live stream for Washington County Government, Maryland, and read comments publicly. Watch this meeting. They have their schedule listed, and I'm reading the public comments. I missed a few. I also didn't read all of them just because I don't wanna put people on the spot that I don't know. So this is social services. Heart and sun or the mm. So if they don't fund this, we know what's up. We're grant management. A lot of their funding, what I noticed is let's not pull a card for this lady because I feel like she is a good person. Just in honor of what she's doing. She came there ready, fierce, forward motion, forward motion. Girl, you came there dressed and ready. You came there dressed and ready. You got your hair did, your boots on. You came there dressed and ready, girl. You helped them out. You helped them out. So this could technically be for ice. Like insulin. Yeah, people who need insulin and stuff in that center, medications. I'm gonna pull a card on this because I feel like a confusing energy here. 5 of Cups. You can hear protesters, yay. The lion is back. Here we go. Here we go. Hmm. Okay, so they're This is all the rest is the DHS Center, and this is where they're gonna probably ramp up protests. I don't know if people are gonna be in the committee hearing still. I don't know if they're still in there. I can't tell. But if people are gonna do anything, it's gonna be in the next 20 minutes because it's all this on the bill. So people are gonna. When I was in there, people had whistles. People started coughing loud. We can't be heard other than on this chat. This is for medication-assisted treatment within the detention center. The next one is, if you're gonna get people protesting, it's gonna be now the Washington County. Oh, shit. This one. This is where the protesting is gonna be. Oh, they moved it. Hold up. This is for people coming in. So this is for people coming into the center, probably, right? I'm guessing. This is all just a guess. Let me get their schedule. Click out of it. There it is. They're trying to get people to work for them, and I saw ads on Indeed for it. They're giving them a $40,000 bonus, allegedly. Wonder why. Who would even understand why? Nobody's really commenting in the comments. It's kind of also we're under the energy of Mars moving into Pisces. When Mars goes into Aries, it's gonna be a little bit of a different story for people. We're still in that watery energy. And if you have any form of sadness in you, it can lock you up. Things are definitely going to ramp up around in a couple of weeks because we're going to get into Aries season. Mars moves into Aries April 9th. That is the war planet. People are going to be on one with that. Navigate from the heart is the recommendation. All right, so that's it for their schedule for the day. And somebody's calling. Okay, so that's it for the day for the Washington County Commissioner Board hearing. You can hear it without my comments on their Facebook page if you are inclined to listen. Their closed session on the schedule is discussion of appointment to Hagerstown Regional Airport Advisory Commission. Also, the discussion regarding structure, membership, and scope of responsibilities of certain volunteer board. That's very vague. We don't know what that means. And then to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter. Open session discussion would breach attorney-client privilege. Status update and legal advice from county attorney on county-involved legal matter. Now, and then to conduct collective bargaining negotiations on or consider matters that relate to the negotiations. Open session discussion would disadvantage board's ability to discuss bargaining strategy or ask questions of legal counsel. Discuss proposed collective bargaining agreement. I don't know what that's in terms of, but I just pulled the Tower, which I'm looking at this from an energetic perspective. It could be somebody's personal matters. It could be a business's personal matters. It could be DHS. But here's what we saw last week. When they went into closed session last week, they basically, during that closed session, that is when we left that closed session, or that closed session ended, and then the next day, Commissioner Derek Harvey, who served in a plethora of intelligence committees, Central Command, the House Permanent Select, and Committee on Intelligence. He worked under the first presidency of Donald Trump. He served in the U.S. Army as a colonel. He Iraq, Afghanistan, worked through Iraq, Afghanistan, National Security Council. I'm just reading his Wikipedia. United States House Permanent Select Committee. I read that. Coordination with Lev Parnas. And I'll read that part. On January 17, 2020, text messages released by the House indicated that Harvey coordinated with a Ukrainian American, Lev Parnas, to obtain negative information against Trump's political opponent, Joe Biden, and to discredit claims that it was Ukraine and not Russia that interfered with the 2016 election. The messages added weight to claims made in 2019 by Parnas' attorney that Harvey met with Rudy Giuliani, Lev Parnas, and their associates at the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. Further, that Harvey canceled a trip to meet with Ukrainian officials in person to avoid having to disclose the meeting with Congressman Adam Schiff, and that he hoped that he phoned and Skyped instead. Harvey sued CNN, Lev Parnas, and Parnas' attorney for defamation in October 2020, claiming they had falsely accused him of criminal, unethical, and dishonest conduct. The case was dismissed by federal Judge Richard Bennett on February 17, 2021. 2 days later, a similar defamation suit filed by Nunes against CNN was dismissed by federal judge Laura Taylor Swain in April of 2021. Bennett found Harvey and his attorney had acted in bad faith and ordered them to pay CNN's court costs and legal fees. And then he went from there, and then he served on this commission or board, and then his position expires, and then he resigned last week and my guess is that's that closed session. So my educated guess, my intuitive, let me just pull a card. Why don't I just pull a card? Why is this regarding ICE? Is this regarding something? Contemplative solitude, the Hermit. The Hermit is also the card for this particular moon in the sign of Virgo. So this card is for this moon. Virgo's moon is today. This one popped out the snow. the snow. So in this case, the Five of Pentacles. But I do think that my cards, I think this deck that I'm working with is not like, I can only correlate it. I'm going to read actually from the definition because I think it's been trying to tell me certain things that I'm not paying attention to because I'm trying to be perfect, and you can't be perfect, right? So 68. So 68, Five of Earth Guardians. This is in relation to the closed session. And the reason why I think this closed session is such a thing is like it's commissioner hearings across the board, commissioner county meetings across the board. This is coming to your town. That's happening in your town. There are DHS purchased warehouses across the United States. I do think it's in correlation to everything. And, um, you know, whether you call it intuition, whatever you want to call it, I just keep seeing the water. I have questions about the Key Bridge that was, hit by a cargo ship in 2024. I have, and right before that, I haven't talked about the Crocus Music Hall, but in Russia, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. Hold on. Let me read this card for a moment. It might not even be this one that I get into the Key Bridge falling in Baltimore or outside of Baltimore, Maryland. It might not be this time when I talk about like the Crocus Music Hall, but at the same time, like this tarot deck is very powerful, very much recommend it. So the snow, Five of Earth Guardians. Your current challenges may seem overwhelming. Try to see them as opportunities. Call on the support that is available to you. Life has presented you with experiences that inspire growth, new perspectives, and a sense of profound compassion and humility. This card suggests you have healing opportunities available to you. It says healing financial matters. Now, I find help in her journey. So let me just see. She does like visions with these cards. And so you are in the snow. Everything is around you. Fir trees line your vision, each blanketed in shimmering light. There is a deep silence and stillness. Ahead of you is an iced over lake. It reflects the sky and creates a centerpiece for a steep mountain slope. So what I hear in that is, and it says nothing to do with like the words. It just has to do with the feeling. The Six of Earth Guardians, the African plains. Six of Pentacles, the help, because it was saying ask for help, or it was saying there's help here. I do think that this is like off the wall, right? What I'm about to say, but I do think that this is exactly what Hitler was trying to do. And I do think that this has to do with the fact that this is a long form experiment on society. I do think it has to do with genetic information and HT situations. Now I say HT, put two and two together because I'm on two different lives right now. But the fact that these commissioners said like they didn't know in the meeting, like they didn't know that this was a DHS facility. I think I don't think they all knew. I don't think they all knew, but I think Derek Harvey knew. And maybe one or two others, maybe. And this is just an intuitive tarot card reader. I don't have a background in journalism. I'm just a person that reads tarot and astrology and a pattern recognizer. But the fact that last week, like, I was reading these bios and then I went down the Carnegie Mellon rabbit hole where Derek Harvey had graduated. I don't think it ends here. I don't necessarily think his next career is maybe even going to be made public because it was stated that he went on to a new vocation. My guess is even if he were to serve somewhere, it doesn't even have to be publicly stated. Maybe it's something that he's already been serving. So my whole thing is like, Of course, this is happening in Indiana. Of course, this is happening anywhere they have warehouses. And you can go on Project Saltbox and they have the warehouse maps there. You know, it's not just singular Washington County, Williamsport, Maryland. This is a strategic operation. And if you don't think that it's not also coinciding with Israel, I don't know what to tell you, because it has also come to light that a lot of these ICE agents are trained by the IDF. So this is how you get it local, right? They localized it. They got real local. They were like, where do we find these vulnerable towns? If in this meeting today, the only thing related to social services are these clinics for social services that help people with grant funding. And a lot of it has to do with substance abuse. And for those who are unaware, I will be shouting this probably on every video at this point, is that a lot of these Appalachian towns, a lot of these small country towns, you know, most people are doing blue collar work. And a lot of these people are my age and older, and they were put on opiates by doctors that were put into these areas, or at least influenced by pharmaceutical companies. So their life of like backbreaking work, which is what these areas are, and a lot of people who are from immigrant families, you know, there's a strong Latin community that serves the community, that probably built commissioner houses. They probably built the very houses that these boards serve. Farming, agriculture, you know, it just mining for some people, because you know West Virginia's right on the other side, Pennsylvania's right on the other side. You know, these are the things that are really important to kind of look at. I might not look at the Key Bridge today, but that anniversary is coming up, so I might look at that down the road, because there's a lot of information being thrown at us at once. But it is something that is to note. And the actual community crisis that is happening is being infiltrated by whatever this is. Whether I'm going to go all the way back to like, you know, COVID. Probably, it's probably been in the works for a long, long time. So the way I'm going to kind of end this video is just, if you are an intuitive, if you're asking a lot of questions, think of your question, and I'll just interpret the card as it stands and what it means for you. So think of your question, your concern, what you have on your mind, and I will feel out what this card means. So, it is the Deep Dive card, the Four of Portals, the Four of Cups. And the Four of Cups, now I think it's interesting, it's deep dive, and I kept feeling the ocean. I kept feeling, and I pulled caves, and there has been concern of underwater caves. So one of the things, when I woke up, I set an alarm for 3 a.m. Because of the eclipse. And I was going to go out and see the eclipse, but out of respect to native cultures, indigenous cultures that say, please do not look at an eclipse, I set the alarm and then just kind of meditated for a half an hour with the energy of the eclipse, but I did not physically go out and look at it. So what I felt when I was meditating was I saw a point of interaction off the coast of Miami. And I know that Cuba is basically experiencing, an embargo, like there's a mass starvation in Cuba, and um, you know, Trump is really effing over Cuba right now. So what I saw physically were these 3 points meeting, and it was Cuba that was being held by the light. Like there was like a light in like the ocean, and then I saw Russia in an ocean, in like I don't know if it was like, it was a ship. I just kept seeing like a long ship, like a long, like it kept moving lengthwise, like moving lengthwise, and then I saw like the US and I saw the point, and it was 3 forces together, or 3 forces in the, and it might be related to this portal here. It might be related to the Atlantic Ocean. So I just keep hearing like, look to the ocean, look to what's going on in the sea, which is why I felt Yemen before, and I was like, all eyes on Yemen, because we have a pretty significant holiday, and there is a, let me just see, Celtic, or wait, goddess holidays. Let me just read what I read last night, because sometimes I don't know. I just see things and I don't really always know what it translates to. Okay. Okay, here we go. So this week, here are the like more witchy woo-woo holidays. So, oh wait, hold on. I don't know why I brought that up. And I trust my intuition when I go onto these live streams. So really I'm pulling from, like, I can't always interpret what I feel. I can just follow my instinct here. And that's how I kind of read overall. Okay. So I think this is, oh, wait. This was the snow moon, right? No, that wasn't the snow moon. Hold on. Why is it giving me Here she is. Here she is. Here she is. Okay, March. So the full moon was the worm moon. Maybe that's what it is. It's like a wormhole. And then we have the Feast of Rhiannon. So I'm reading from a celebratepaganholidays.com. I am reading this from every perspective. I'm trying to add that, you know, we're in Lent for Catholicism, Ramadan, Muslim tradition. There's so many different Purim. And so also I was looking at this calendar yesterday to see how this coincided with the moon. So if I mess things up, I'm not trying to appropriate. I'm trying to educate myself, be on live streams, and also trust my gut, trust my glitter. So the Feast of Rhiannon, the Celtic moon goddess of the underworld, is tomorrow, the 4th. And then the 5th of March is it's called Navigium Isidis, the goddess Isis. So, and then, yeah, so I'll leave it there for now. So my whole thing is, if this is a spiritual war, we're gonna see some sort of activity on the 4th and 5th of March. Somebody said, so if I were a betting person, and by the way, I could be wrong. I actually want to pull a card because we're in so much water and Mercury stuff, I don't want to like put money on it, but I guess if that gets people to kind of note that this is a goddess's war, and this is the 4 of activations, the 4 of swords, which is like, sword of assertion, the paladin, so that's the knight of swords. Key figures. I just see red everywhere. Okay, if I were a betting woman, which I don't like to be, I would say, let's see what coincides with those 2 holidays. So Rhiannon is tomorrow, and Isis holiday is the day after. Rhiannon is in this, let me just give a website. Let's just do Wikipedia. I'm just doing Wikipedia for general. I'm going with my intuition, and then when I start to read, I start to see pictures. So she is the Welsh goddess, female figure in Welsh mythology, and protagonist, strong-minded ruler, a lady of the courts, and a devoted mother. She is intelligent, politically strategic, and famed for her sophisticated conservation and striking looks, as well as her wealth and generosity of gifts. I think there's a deeper feeling to Miss Rhiannon. Rhiannon seems to inherit the traditions of an earlier Celtic deity, Gaulish, the horse goddess Epona. Rhiannon is strongly associated with horses, and her son is Pryderi? I can't fucking read. She and her son are often depicted as a mare and a foal. So we are in the year of the horse. So that is, if they're going, because if this is a goddess war and this is what they're doing, we have to kind of look to goddess holidays. And we just left the year of the snake. And so one of the things I want to say is, oh, this is a part. Okay, let me just have some water, because I was going to just do a separate video on this, but it wants to be spoken of now. There's different types of snakes. So there's different species of snakes for different reasons. And so I think that a lot of snakes are depicted as scary, but when you hear that the snakes were basically the genocide of the pagans in traditional Ireland, it's the idea that the energy of the snake is regenerative. And when I think of regenerative medicine, I think about genetics. I think about things like cell lines, which is on a previous video why I discussed Miss Henrietta Lacks and her genetic cell lineage, based on the Johns Hopkins studies that infiltrated and stole her genetic cell line. So when I think about the snake, we can think about so many different religions and how the snake is utilized over and over again. But I was thinking about this in my own personal experience, which is, I've lived out in the desert multiple times. The first time I lived in the desert was during 2020. I had a beautiful house that I stayed in and really wanted to buy that house. It was my dream house. And I was renting the house. I had a really good job. And it was like, I was like, oh, goddess, universe has really blessed me here. And I was so excited. I got to work from home and write astrology, and life just lifed in 2020. And everything, just like when we go through a spiritual death, just ended, And I had been through lots of spiritual death. But I remember at that house how protected I felt from the land. And I was really, sometimes we have grid lines that work with our energy. And for some reason, that particular piece of land, really, really, I felt at home on it. And it just was so perfect for me. And I remember coming home from and it was in rural land. It was all desert land. It took a while to get up kind of somewhat of a mountain to get there. In full desert. So there was one day I was driving back from the grocery store, and there was a snake stretched across my little tiny front porch. And it was large, and I didn't think it was a rattlesnake, but I texted a friend who had been living out in the desert longer than me, and he was like, that is a gopher snake. And they're very helpful. They keep the rattlesnakes away. And so, I just let her, I think it was actually a male snake. I'm not sure. So I can feel the energy of different animals, and it felt very protected. And I knew that by seeing that snake, I would be fully protected in that house. And I was, for as long as I had to be there, as long as spirit assigned me there. Fast forward, I had lived it out in the desert again in a tiny little cabin, no electricity. Um, and I didn't have any snakes out there, but I did have incident with a true desert scorpion, a true poisonous scorpion that just took its time, or took it, it was during the time when our eclipses were in Taurus and Scorpio. And I had my yoga mat on that front porch. My dog was out, and he looked down, and what I was used to with which are what are called wind scorpions. So I thought it was just the way it moved. I thought it was a wind scorpion, which they do bite, but they are like pinch, but they're not poisonous. And so when I looked down, the way it was moving, because they move really fast to the side, they're like, I looked down on the yoga mat and my dog was like sniffing something. And I looked down, I thought at first it was a wind scorpion, and it was an actual desert, I believe, Arizona scorpion. And so when I looked, and I like grabbed my dog immediately and I just sat back, and I think it was like female energy, and it presented its tail to me, presented its tail, pointed at me, and I was like, got really calm. And then she just glided away. She was on my yoga mat, and my yoga mat has lotuses, purple lotuses on it. And it's almost like she just paid a visit to let me know she was there. And then I had never seen a scorpion after that. I saw a bunch of tarantulas. I had a brown recluse in the dry toilet bathroom that would come out every night. I just allowed, and even in my first desert house, I had a black widow that was by the bed. And I kind of was able to, I tried to relocate her, and I was unsuccessful to the point that she walked across my hand. And I was like, I had a black widow spider walk across my hand and not bite me. And so I just kind of let her have her web right next to the bed. And I'm fine to this day from them. So fast forward to another desert house that was kind of across, literally just the road from where the other one was. Actually had a bathroom and a makeshift shower, but it did not have electricity. I had my dog brought me over to a snake that was in the yard by a bush. I have some pictures on my X of where I stayed, and it was a beautiful curled up, clearly rattlesnake, clearly shedding her skin because she was not moving. She probably had eaten, but she was curled up and she was small. She's about just tiny. And I was like, okay, she's growing. She's probably adolescent, but it definitely felt like a female rattlesnake. And it's interesting. I was out in the desert when I got there. In one of the houses, I got there October 5th, 2023. I felt called to be out in the desert. And my whole reason for going was I wanted to homestead, and I wanted to buy a homestead house, and it just never, my money has never quite, I had to let my shadow shed. I had to let it happen. I had to go through my death cycles, but I didn't realize that at the time that's what I was going through. And so I've always wanted to homestead, and California land is beautiful. And I love California, and it's healthier for me, for my mental health, physical health, the sunshine. I wake up with the sunshine. East Coast has always brought out the depression in me. But life has lifed, and when I was out in the desert this time, I just saw some things in the sky. I've had a lot of experiences that I cannot explain. I cannot confirm what they were. So I don't want to say what I saw because I don't know what I saw. I just have to allow what I saw. And I had another thing that was circling the house at night and it weren't coyotes. I had coyotes come to the door. But the thing is, I had intelligent connections with animals, always since I was really young. And so, a lot of people talk about the phenomena in the sky, and my whole thing is also look to the animals, also look to the plants, also look to the messages we receive from animals, because A gopher snake taught me that, if you see a large gopher snake, most likely the dens around the area are gopher snakes and they keep the rattlesnakes away. And when I finally had my experience with a rattlesnake, and the main thing I worry about was my dog. I don't care, about myself. Like, I care about myself, but I care about my dog. And it's just keeping him safe in those situations. So I had to adjust how I lived out in the desert based on the rattlesnake and based on my observations. Like, you could see where she slithered and where she went. And then the rains came. We had an atmospheric river. And I only saw her once, and I heard from her one more time. She was off the east side of the porch, and I knew that she was telling me that something was coming from the east. I didn't know when. I just knew that it was from the east. And that's what I feel when I see this card. I see a snake. Like, if you cut a snake or you cut a gut, like an intestine, like we're going down a portal or an intestinal tract, or a snake itself, like almost like we're seeing it we're slicing it, but it's really moving this way. That's what I see when I look at this card. So I say all that to say that I think that that's why we need to look to May 5th for any action in the water that's significant, that has to do with Navy fleets, Navy forces, 3 different major and power players. Not May the 5th. What did I say? May the 5th? March the 5th. March the 5th. I can be wrong, I'm just going by cards, but in the water, and specifically portals in the water, or submarines or submersibles. And I feel like that's it. That's exactly what I meant to say right now. So thank you. This has been long. And I'm going to keep continuing my live streams. If you want to if I were to put money on it, March the 5th. March the 5th. If I'm a betting woman, March the 5th, something to deal with Navy, Fleet Forces, submersibles. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. If I'm completely wrong, I absolutely understand. I'm an intuitive person, and I'm just following my intuition. So the reasoning behind that is it's the holiday of Isis in the Celtic calendar, or in the goddess calendar, and that is why. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.